¿Hablas español?
Sprichst du Deutsch?
Kan du norsk?
If you've heard that sound from Babbel before, I bet you do. Babbel is the science-backed language learning app that actually works. With quick 10-minute lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts, Babbel gets you on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. With over 16 million subscriptions sold and a 20-day money-back guarantee, just start speaking another language with Babbel. Right now, up to 55% off your Babbel subscription at babbel.com/Spotify podcast. Spelled BABBEL.com/Spotify podcast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Welcome to My Weekly Mixtape, a podcast that takes the classic mixtape approach to building a modern playlist. I'm your host, Brian Colburn. This week, to celebrate the 100th episode of My Weekly Mixtape, I'm continuing to create the ultimate mixtape, where today I will reveal songs 21 through 40. So if you missed episode 100, you might want to pause this one and go back and listen to that first, so you can both A, get an idea of what the hell I'm even talking about when I say the ultimate mixtape, and B, to find out how the playlist got us to where we are right now. You can't watch The Empire Strikes Back without watching A New Hope, or Star Wars as I refer to it, but I digress. A lot of this episode won't make sense unless you've already heard episode 100, but hey, maybe you're someone who likes to live on the edge and could care less about continuity. So if that's the case, party on, Wayne. But before we start diving into the songs, if you like what you've heard on My Weekly Mixtape across the last 100 episodes, you can help me out by either telling a friend about the show, leaving the show a 5-star review wherever you're tuning in, or becoming a Patreon mixtaper at patreon.com/My Weekly Mixtape. There you can find ad-free episodes of the show, gain early access to future My Weekly Mixtape episodes, chime in on upcoming topics, become a future guest, and so much more. Once again, that's patreon.com/My Weekly Mixtape. Now, before we get started, I'm going to spoil one song from Volume 1. The song that was the cliffhanger that ended the first of this trilogy of episodes. But first, I'll remind everyone of the question that fuels all of these 65 various answers. And that question is, if you had to choose one song for the ultimate mixtape, any song, any genre, that would be locked away in a time capsule for others to discover years or decades from now, which song would you choose and why? Closing out Side B of Volume 1 was the Colts' She Sells Sanctuary, as provided by Robin Wilson of the Gin Blossoms. So the first song of Volume 2 should, in theory, come out of that song and at least make some musical sense. And after scrolling through this list of songs several times, I think I found something that works. And we're going to start with Ben Checkness of the Too Vague podcast as he provides his pick for the ultimate mixtape.
Hello, Brian. Hello, fellow mixtapers. This is Ben Checkness from the Too Vague podcast. My pick for the ultimate mixtape is Cat People by David Bowie with music by Giorgio Moroder. He made the music for this song and the rest of the Cat People movie from 1982. David Bowie was brought on to bring the lyrics, and it's a very haunting sort of song. The reason I picked it for the ultimate mixtape kind of has to do with the reason why I started the podcast. Cat People was one of my father's favorite movies. And one of the reasons why I started my show was to share stories and my love of video games, sort of in honor of my father. So that is kind of the reason why I want to put it in the ultimate mixtape. Plus, it's David Bowie. I mean, you can't go wrong with anything sung by David Bowie. He just has an amazing voice. So that is sort of the reason it's honoring my father. He's been gone for 4 years now, but every time I do the show, I think about him, and it kind of is sort of an inspiration to continue the show. Maybe a sad reason? It's really not sad, I swear. Happy mixtaping.
From 1982's soundtrack to Cat People, the song reached number 67 on the Billboard US Hot 100, number 13 in Canada, number 15 in Australia, and number 26 in the UK. But even with all of that, it was a number 1 hit in Finland, New Zealand, Norway, and Sweden. Ben has been a guest on 2 episodes of My Weekly Mixtape, those being episode 31, the Ultimate 80s and some 70s New Wave Classics playlist, and episode 49, the Ultimate Billboard #1 Hits of the 80s playlist. So be sure to check those out, and if you're a gamer, be sure to check out what Ben's doing over on the 2 Vague, that's TWO Vague podcast, by the way, as I was a guest on his, wait for it, mixtape episode. That was an extremely fun discussion, and I even got to get a little bit of my gamer geek on in that one. So following up David Bowie's Cat People, I'm actually going to move ahead a couple of decades and bring in Leah from the Struts Life podcast and her choice for the Ultimate Mixtape.
I have to choose The Struts Could Have Been Me for 2 reasons.
Nice.
I co-host their show, and it's literally tattooed onto my body. The song, from the moment I heard it, has just kind of been an anthem of my life. Like, I don't want to look back to anything that I maybe was too scared to do or too intimidated to do and say, hey, that could have been me. Why not try it and see if it works out? And so that's just how I aim to live my life.
The first single from their 2014 debut studio album, Everybody Wants, the song hit number 4 on the US rock airplay charts and number 2 on the Canada rock charts. I actually discovered the Struts in 2015 when their EP Have You Heard, which also features Could Have Been Me, dropped in the US and started making waves. And it was the 2016 re-release of Everybody Wants here in the US that completely solidified my fandom of this band. I had the chance to finally see them live in 2024, and really no surprise here, this is the song they close with. This is the song that put them on the map, not only for me, but for many, many others. And I think it's awesome what Lee is doing over at The Struts Life, which is another Pantheon Podcast Network podcast, I should mention. Each week, she hosts a conversation with a different Struts member on a wide array of topics. So if you're a fan of the band, be sure to check out what she's doing over there because it's great stuff, including premiering new Struts music in the podcast itself. So be sure to check that out. And recently, Leah broke away from Struts Talk for a couple hours just to sit down with me and help curate the Ultimate 2024 Country playlist, which is episode 97 if you want to check it out. Because as a country fan myself, I think we put together, in my humble opinion, an extremely fun yet eclectic representation of what 2024 had to offer the country scene. But with that, we've had some Bowie, we've had some Struts, so I think I'm going to keep this rock vibe going, but I'm going to bring in a little bit of this alternative / indie pop to the fold with this song choice from David Rosen of Piecing It Together.
Damn, that is a tough one. And there's so many. It's like where am I narrowing it down? So I'm gonna tell you my favorite one of my all-time favorite songs that I feel like doesn't get enough love, and I think that's the reason why I'm going to pick it and make it my choice here. It's a song called Gone Forever by the Ravenettes, off of their album In and Out of Control. I believe that was 2009, I want to say. I forget the exact year, but this song we talk about these like vivid storytelling songs. It just paints such a picture. It's got one of the best guitar solos I've ever heard. And it's just got this vibe that is just so damn cool. And I don't know if you're a Ravenettes fan at all. They've had a few songs that kind of broke through, but they never quite got as big as I feel like they deserve to be. But this song, I think, is just the best thing that they've ever done. And sometimes I think of it as my favorite song, even though I'm a big Cure guy, a big Depeche Mode guy. And like I've got these other, lots of other interests that are like my favorite songs. But this one is kind of the one that I would want more people to check out because I feel like they don't get enough credit. And this song probably hasn't been heard by as many people as it should be.
A promo-only single from their album In and Out of Control. However, there was a video made for the song, so it's still a single but not officially released via the label. I think David hit the nail on the head with the underrated discussion part of the Ravenettes. Hell, just by looking at the YouTube page for this video, it's comment after comment about how criminally underrated the band is, along with how brilliant this song is, and I have to agree. David was a guest on episode 81, the Ultimate Songs About Guitars playlist, which was an extremely fun and varied musical discussion. We pulled out so many different genres for that one. So be sure to check that out and everything he's got going on over at Piecing It Together. But in order to keep this alternative rock, pop, indie kind of vibe going, I think I'm going to have to turn the mic over to Manny at the Nostalgia Test to provide his song choice for the Ultimate Mixtape.
All right, I'm gonna go with the first thought I had was Mr. Brightside by the Killers. I've seen these guys live several times, and I've seen them in big arenas like Madison Square Garden, and they are. If you've never seen them live, what a rock! Like that's like our generation's, or like my generation's like rock band. Like they know how to entertain. Brandon Flowers is a fantastic entertainer. I felt like I was in a room with just him. I didn't feel like I was like, they do not get swallowed up by Madison Square Garden. They swallow Madison Square Garden up. And I just think they're one of the best performing bands. And I hope that they're all going to be performing. Like, I want to see them like Aerosmith, like go that long. Or like, I'm seeing Brandon Flowers when I'm 70 years old.
From their 2000 debut album, Hot Fuss, the song reached number 10 on the US Billboard Hot 100 and UK Singles Chart, number 5 on the Canada Rock Top 30, number 29 in Australia, and number 15 in New Zealand. Rolling Stone ranked at number 48 in their list of the 100 best songs of the 2000s. Pitchfork Media ranked at number 72 on their list of the top 500 tracks of the 2000s, and NME ranked at number 116 in their list of the 500 greatest songs of all time. So wrap your mind around that one. Manny and Dan were both awesome guests on episode 92, the Ultimate Nostalgia playlist, which you have to admit is a very fitting topic given the name of their podcast. And looking down the list of songs at where we're at in the playlist, since I already know what Dan chose for his song as I've been scrolling this list up and down as we're going through this, I don't think it'd be too far-fetched to say that you'll be hearing his pick a little bit later this evening. I'm pretty confident of that, so stay tuned. But next up, I actually think I have something that's going to both simultaneously bring us into the 80s, but keep the Killers vibe going that Manny brought to the table here, as Jamie DeTringo of The Seas provides his song choice for the Ultimate Mixtape.
Wow. Without giving any thought, I'm going to just go with right now, In Excess, Don't Change, off their first record. I mean, that song just gives me so much happiness. I hear that every time, that initial riff and synth parts. I mean, we keep on talking about movie soundtracks, the ending song in the Adventureland movie, which is fantastic. I just love In Excess so much. That album's a banger. That track is the best. It just rules.
From 1982, Shabu Shuba, the song reached number 17 on the Billboard US Mainstream Rock Chart, number 80 on the US Hot 100, and number 14 in Australia. The song's been covered by a ton of different groups, including Everclear, Face to Face, the Goo Goo Dolls, Limp Bizkit, yeah, I'm serious, among many others. In Excess actually has, now that I think about it, several songs in their catalog that would work really well for cover dive episodes of My Weekly Mixtape, so got to put a pin in that one. But after doing an interview with Jamie for episode 58, the Ultimate Billboard #1 Hits of the 90s playlist, and previewing some tracks from the Seas' debut album, Conversations with My Future Self, I could definitely hear the influence that Don't Change has on the Seas' music, and it's definitely worth checking out. But from here, I think I'm going to keep going with what's now shifting towards this 80s rock vibe, as Matt Scannell of Vertical Horizon provides his song choice for the Ultimate Mixtape.
I'm going to say Subdivisions by Rush. I feel like it's one of the greatest lyrics ever written. I feel like it's one of the greatest drum performances of all time. I feel like the bed of music, the keyboards, the guitars, it's perfect. It's a perfect song from start to finish. And it's deeply, deeply, deeply meaningful. So I've been growing up in Worcester, Massachusetts, and I'm sure just like all around the country, certainly at that time, I grew up in the 70s and the 80s. And, there were these cliques in high school, and I'm sure it exists today. And you were either in or you were out. You were trying to be cool, but you weren't cool. You lived in the suburbs, and you wanted to experience the heat of the city, the chaos of the city. You were drawn to it like moth to the flame. And it's a perfect song, and it should be on everybody's mixtape forever.
From their 1982 album Signals, the song reached number 5 on the Billboard Bubbling Under Hot 100 chart and number 5 on the Mainstream Rock Tracks chart. Classic Rock Magazine ranked the song number 6 on their list of the 50 greatest Rush songs ever, and Ultimate Classic Rock and Rolling Stone magazine ranked the song both 9 and 10 respectively in their top 10 Rush song lists. Now, more importantly than any of that, for the first time in this Ultimate Mixtape experiment, we have a duplicate band. Rush now becomes the first band to have 2 songs in the fold, as Red Barchetta was brought to the time capsule on Volume 1 by Steve from Something for Nothing, a Rush fan cast, and I'm all but sure that he'll be happy to hear that news. Now, before I move on to the next song, I should also add, if you're a fan of Vertical Horizon, stick around for Volume 3 of the Ultimate Mixtape, which drops later this week, as I have a little bit of a tease for an upcoming episode that I think you're going to be interested to hear. So I'll just leave that there for now. But moving on from Rush, I think I'm going to slow it down a bit while still keeping the 80s alive, at least in spirit, with this choice from my good friend and former Toonstyles co-host, Jay Sweet.
Oh, well, don't save the hardest question for last or anything. Good Lord.
What? This should be easy for you. It's one song. How hard could it possibly be?
No pressure. The Ultimate Mixtape and my contribution thereof, which will either make me a hero, a musical hero, or it will ridicule me and ostracize me worse than Ang Lee's Hulk.
No pressure. See?
No
it's
pressure.
Easy.
No pressure. Well, let's see. I could go with some of my old standbys. If I could go with Journey or REO Speedwagon, maybe some Van Halen, but I think those have probably been overly contributed. All right, I have 2 I could go with. I could go with either David Glenn Isley's Sweet Victory, Winner Takes All, from the most famous by the SpongeBob SquarePants episode Band Geeks. Or I think I'm leaning more heavily towards we could go completely wild side, if you will, and go with the Mark Wahlberg version of We All Die Young, which was originally recorded by Steelheart, and I believe was even on the movie soundtrack, was written and recorded by Mike Matajevic. Is that what we're saying? Milenko?
Matajevic, yes.
But he goes by Mike? Yeah. I got to tell you, that guy's voice is insane, and I have these stratospheric idols that I love in music. The guys with the higher voices, like Michael Sweet from Stryper, also no relation. These voices, if I had 1/10 of their talent right now, I would not be in Chicago, Illinois.
I just want to point out, Jay, that you do realize that your friend Marky Mark, who did Wild Side, that's not him singing, right? You do know that?
No. Lies. Lies.
No, but like you said, that is Mike Matajevic, and that's the version on the Rockstar soundtrack is actually an all-star lineup,
Re-recording the original that was done by Steelheart.
Yeah.
It's Zach Wilde on guitar, Jason Bonham on drums, and Jeff Pilson on bass.
That's crazy. And the version on the Rockstar, of course, we're referring to the Rockstar soundtrack of the movie with Mark Wahlberg, Jennifer Aniston, and all of the aforementioned band members there. The original version was written by Matijevic for his mother, who was dying from cancer. So I have a deep connection to that song as well.
because we went through that same thing together. And the version that Steel Dragon recorded was a lot heavier and a little bit more up-tempo than the version on the Steelheart album. Is it Tangled in Rains that is from? I don't remember.
It's the opening track on Wait.
Of Wait. Yeah, that's the one. But that version is a little bit more mellow and a little bit less heavy, distorted Zakk Wylde guitar.
Yeah, there's definitely less squeals in that version.
Well, there you go. That's my contribution. Rock out. Because again, like we talked about right early on, mixtapes to me, I associate with driving, with road trips. So I think that song, because you also asked why I would choose that song. I think that song really gets me in a mood to be able to drive and not deal with people hanging out in the left lane going 45 miles an hour.
Originally recorded by Steelheart as the opening song on their 1996 album Wait, it was re-recorded by fictional band Steel Dragon for the 2001 film Rockstar, featuring Steelheart vocalist Miljenko Manajevic on lead vocals, Zakk Wylde of Ozzy Osbourne and Black Label Society on lead guitar, Jeff Pilson of Dokken and Foreigner on bass, and Jason Bonham on drums. So total supergroup for this movie. Absolutely love the song pick and the sentiment that Jay brings on his opinion of the song. I also want to thank Jay for the 3.5 years that we did Tune Styles together. That really got me scratching the itch for this podcasting thing, starting it back in 2017, having no idea if anybody was going to listen, putting out over 80 episodes. And from the day we started to the day the show ended, the show just constantly grew and grew, and then became Playlist Wars that I did with Gomez, and now on to My Weekly Mixtape, where I'm fortunate enough to have both Jay and Gomez coming on the show again and kind of keeping that circle of podcasts that I've been a part of moving through our various shows. Jay, you got to get your ass on your own podcast too, man. We got to get you doing something as well, but that's for another conversation at another time. Thank you so much for earning your board shorts and being a guest on so many of the My Weekly Mixtape episodes. You can just go to myweeklymixtape.com and search Jay Sweet to find all the episodes he's done with us. And over on the Patreon website, I'm actually starting to upload some of our older Tune Styles episodes as bonus content over at patreon.com/myweeklymixtape. So be sure to check out some of the old stuff that, unfortunately, little did Jay and I know, you can't find anywhere now. If you search Tune Styles, you're going to find the episodes we've done here on My Weekly Mixtape. But as soon as we ended the show's run, all the original episodes disappeared, which was a total shame because I really wish they were all available online, but that's another problem for another time. With that, I'm going to slow it down some more and bring into the fold Trevor Dale of Album Divers as he provides his choice for the ultimate mixtape.
All right, that is a good question, Brian. Let's see. I'm thinking, okay, I think what I want to do, because I'm feeling like maybe I'm sending this out into the universe, and kind of like the theme of our episode here, this might be a song that wouldn't be discovered otherwise. So I could very easily put a huge hit. I could put a Beatles song on there, something like that. But I feel like those are going to get mentioned. Those songs are going to get out there. So I feel like this is my chance to throw something in that I want the world to continue to have. So I'm going to put a Harvey Danger song on this list, but it's not going to be Flagpole Sitta. I'm going to put a song called Little Round Mirrors on this playlist. And the reason being, I won't get too deep into it here, but Little Round Mirrors is kind of a time capsule of an era because it represents a CD. And so the whole song is about kind of getting lost in music. And the hole in the middle is the part that can never be filled. And so it's about people like us, Brian, that are maybe a little too into music. You see your reflection, but there's something missing in the middle. I don't know if that's entirely true because I think music fills that hole. But at the same time, there are times when the rabbit hole takes me a little too deep. Sean Nelson from Harvey Danger puts that to words like nobody else can. So I think that song has to be out there. I'm putting it on the list.
And I could say with certainty that the void in the center for me is always filled by either my family, music, or my index finger as I'm switching CDs. So yeah, it's always going to be there, man. One of the two singles from their 2005 album, Little by Little, the other being Cream and Bastards Rise. Kind of glad that Trevor went with Little Round Mirrors, as it works much better at this point of the playlist. So a little selfish reason there for myself. But Harvey Danger is one of those bands that people think Flagpole Sitta and that's it. But there's so much more to dig into on their 2000 album King James Version and Little by Little. I think you'll be surprised when you go down this really fun musical rabbit hole. Now, Trevor was a guest on episode 82, the Ultimate 90s One-Hit Wonders playlist. And if you'd like to hear more from Album Divers, be sure to check out their episode where they dive into Little by Little with Sean Nelson, the lead singer of Harvey Danger. That's an absolutely excellent episode, and I'm looking forward to doing a little bit more with Trevor down the road, so stay tuned for that. But next, I think I'm going to keep this vibe going as Dan from the Nostalgia Test. Remember I mentioned that he'd be in this episode a little earlier? Well, here he is providing his song choice for the Ultimate Mixtape.
Oh my God. All right, I'm just gonna go with my first instinct because it's happening right now. I am like super happy and hopeful because of the Oasis reunion, and I'm hoping that it comes to the US. I'm putting in there a song that I absolutely love, and it's Cast No Shadow by Oasis off their What's the Story Morning Glory album. Cast No Shadow is quite possibly one of their best songs, and I love Oasis, and I'm hoping that they make it through this reunion, make it to the US.
Well, as of this recording, there are U.S. dates scheduled, but whether the band makes the shows or not remains to be seen. However, an album cut from 1995's What's the Story Morning Glory, I think it's kind of cool that the last two cuts have been almost deeper picks, and in the case of Oasis here, an album cut versus one of their bigger hits like Wonderwall, Champagne Supernova, or Don't Look Back in Anger. So being we're going with deeper cuts and we're in this kind of slower vibe here, I know exactly how we're going to close out side A. And I'm going to bring in Kevin Brown of the Tom Petty Project to provide his song choice for the Ultimate Mixtape. Now, does Tom Petty become the second twofer of the Ultimate Mixtape? Let's find out.
Oh my God. Wow, that's a hell of a question. You know what? I will stick on brand. I will go with Petty. I'm going to go Crawling Back to You. I think that if I want to give someone Petty at his height, at the height of his songwriting prowess, a band that could play a song in a million different ways and were never done with it. They were always kind of still building that song and still finding small ways to perfect it or change it or improve it. And something that's probably going to be a little bit different, because I'm sure if you're talking to different people for this collection, you're going to get a lot of big hitting singles. I think that I'd like to have Crawling Back to You represent Tom Petty at a specific point in his life.
The penultimate track on 1994's Tom Petty solo album, Wildflowers. When it comes to lyrics, the lines, I'm so tired of being tired, sure as night will follow day, most things I worry about never happen anyway. Man, those lyrics really hit home for me. Tom had such a way of making what he sang versatile enough that you could truly interpret it in so many different ways. And that's something I absolutely adore about his music and have for decades on end. Kevin was an incredible guest on episode 95, the Ultimate Tom Petty playlist. And in that episode, we cover all things Tom Petty, from the Heartbreakers to Mudcrutch, to the Traveling Wilburys, to his guest work, and his solo albums. So if you're a Petty fan, I highly recommend you check out that episode, as well as everything that Kevin's doing over at the Tom Petty Project. I'm pretty sure it's safe to say there'll be a volume 2 for Tom Petty coming down the My Weekly Mixtape road. Or should I say volume 3 as a wink, wink, nudge, nudge to all the hardcore Tom Petty fans out there that might get that reference. But I digress, because we only scratched the surface on volume 1. But with that, Tom Petty becomes the second twofer on the Ultimate Mixtape, and that closes out side A of the Ultimate Mixtape volume 2, which consists of David Bowie, Cat People, Putting Out Fire, provided by Ben Checkness of the Too Vague podcast, The Struts Could Have Been Me, provided by Leah Jones of The Struts Life, The Ravenettes, Gone Forever, provided by David Rosen of Piecing It Together, The Killers' Mr. Brightside, provided by Manny from the Nostalgia Test, In Excess, Don't Change, provided by Jamie DeTringo of The Seas. Rush Subdivisions, provided by Matt Scannell of Vertical Horizon. Steel Dragons, We All Die Young, provided by Jay Sweet of Tune Styles. Harvey Danger's Little Round Mirrors, provided by Trevor Dale of Album Divers. Oasis, Cast No Shadow, provided by Dan from The Nostalgia Test. And Tom Petty's Crawling Back to You, provided by Kevin Brown of The Tom Petty Project. Head over to myweeklymixtape.com to hear all the songs we've discussed in this mix through the playlist embedded on the episode page. All right, now we're ready to dive into Side B for Volume 2 of the Ultimate Mixtape. And to kick things off, I need to come up with a song that properly comes out of my favorite artist of all time. Now, that could easily be a pivot point for me to just go into some selfish fashion, but I'm doing this for everybody here. This is all of our mixtape, so I am thinking strictly musical here. And now, the last song on Side A was Tom Petty's Crawling Back to You. So I think the perfect song to come out of that with was chosen by Maurice Brzezinski of the Love That Album podcast. So let's hear his choice for the Ultimate Mixtape.
Hey Brian, if I had to choose one song for the Ultimate Mixtape, it would be Wrapped in Grey by XTC. I'd come up with several possibilities, but Wrapped in Grey just won't leave my head. Most non-XTC fanatics may think of them as the band with great angular-sounding pop songs of their early days, or for Dear God, or for the sublime Mayor of Simpleton. Andy Partridge and Colin Moulding were songwriters of the highest caliber, but a great song doesn't work alone on paper. It has to have a great arrangement played by sympathetic musicians, and no matter what they did, XTC always had well-thought-out arrangements to lift their songs. Like the Beatles, who they're often compared with, they were never going to repeat themselves. So early hits like Science Friction evolved to Making Plans for Nigel, evolved to Grass. They started out as part of the late 70s British New Wave movement, but like many other bands of that era, didn't want to be constricted to any one thing. By the early 90s, they released the magnificent Non-Such album, which found their songs and arrangements at their most sophisticated, yet never sounding inaccessible. Wrapped in Grey is the pinnacle on that faultless album, to my ears anyway. Musically, Andy Partridge is trying to evoke the Beach Boys. The chord progressions sound deceptively simple, but are very cleverly crafted. There's melodies and falsetto counter-melodies that make the hairs on the back of my arms stand up. There's tasteful string arrangements, and I emphasize the word tasteful. It's never saccharine string arrangements. The song is a masterclass in dynamics, with the verses being reserved and melancholy, then swelling up appropriately to joy. Andy has always been a clever lyricist, but this song is written with the heart more than with the head. The central message is there are people in the world who would drag us down into a pit of misery. Don't let them. Thematically, it sounds like it could be twee and written by anyone, but Andy Partridge has written a song that truly celebrates who we can be if we want to. The metaphor of the misery peddlers only using a palette of shades of grey, are there 50 of them? Don't know. Those of us who want joy have a wider range of colours to use. In this often dark world, I try to make this song's declaration my mantra. Don't let the loveless ones sell you a world wrapped in grey. It is with that sense of positivity that I wanted to add this song to the Ultimate Mixtape.
From 1992's Non-Such, the song was initially slated to be the album's third single, but Virgin Records for some reason withdrew the initial pressings, and it actually caused XTC to go on strike against Virgin until their contracts were terminated. So I'm not going to lie. XTC is a band that I really need to take a moment and dive deep into. I've heard so many great things about them over the years, especially what Morris was just talking about there, but they've kind of been a blind spot for me over the years. So thank you, Morris. With your pick, I'm going to remedy that in 2025. And also, Morris's show, Love That Album podcast, is also available on the Pantheon Podcast Network. So be sure to check out what he's got going on over there. And I'm looking forward to having him on the show at some point this year. We just need to work out the whole, halfway across the world time issues first. But it's definitely going to happen. But next up, I'm going to keep this almost 80s pop / synth vibe going with this song choice from friend of the show, Amy Spear.
For this time capsule, I've gone with my favorite artist of all time, Phil Collins. I decided to pick a song from his solo career. So instead of going with the expected In the Air Tonight, I've decided to go with Take Me Home, a favorite of Phil's to sing live. And this song I feel is perfect for the capsule. I know that the song's lyrics are inspired by One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, but I think for listeners, it carries a sense of longing. Whether it's for home or just something familiar, it's something most of us can connect with. It's also such a really well-crafted song. From the instrumentals to Phil's powerful vocals and even backup vocals from Peter Gabriel and Sting. I mean, seriously, what's not to like? I can't help but belt out the chorus whenever this song comes on. So there it is, my choice for the capsule, Phil Collins' Take Me Home.
The closing track to 1985's No Jacket Required, the song reached number 7 on the US Billboard Hot 100, number 2 on the Canadian Adult Contemporary chart, number 64 in Australia, number 19 in the UK, and number 13 in Ireland. I'm so glad that Amy mentioned Peter Gabriel and Sting on those backing vocals because that's one of the first things I think of when I hear this song. It's such a unique sound, marrying their 3 voices together in this kind of Genesis meets the Police musical connection. And if you're a country fan, in 2024, there was a cover of Take Me Home performed together by Little Big Town and Sugarland that's, I think, really worth checking out. As in a fun coincidence, you get to hear Little Big Town and Sugarland harmonize and be the, as far as I'm concerned, main sticking point of the song, just like Peter Gabriel and Sting were singing background vocals in Phil Collins' original. And I also want to thank Amy for the song choice, but more importantly, being such an incredible person in both my and my entire family's life. We love you and thank you for chiming in with your pick. And all right, we have this slow vibe going now, and there's kind of this strong and heartfelt message getting woven through. So I think this will flow nicely into this next tune that John Laurie of Tantric and Smile Empty Soul provided as his pick for the ultimate mixtape.
The ultimate mixtape of all time? Is that what we're saying?
All time, all genres, all songs, no pressure.
No. Okay, all right. This is going to get deep, but this song is my all-time favorite song. I think it's a song that everybody should listen to, and I think it's a song that if you're just by yourself and you need a little bit of comfort, this song is perfect for that. It's I Won't Let You Go by Switchfoot. It's a song about unconditional love. It's beautiful lyricism. That's my favorite song of all time. That's what I would throw in the ring if it was ultimate playlist of all time.
An album cut from 2016's Where the Light Shines Through. I really love the fact that we're getting songs from bands that are more or less household names, but they're not always the song you would immediately think of. This is a beautiful tune, and it actually shocks me that it wasn't released as a single. Between the string section and the falsetto vocals, I could totally hear this being a pop radio ballad in 2016. But I guess this'll just have to make up for it, as it is now officially in the My Weekly Mixtape, Ultimate Mixtape time capsule instead. Kind of wonder if that's worth reaching out and throwing on their Wikipedia page, because that kind of seems like a big deal, doesn't it? I think so. Anyway, John's been keeping insanely busy in 2024, hitting the skins for Tantric, and he's doing the same for Smile Empty Soul as well. So if you see either of the bands in your area, be sure to check out their sets and say hi to John while you're there. John's been a guest several times over the last 100 episodes of My Weekly Mixtape, so just head to myweeklymixtape.com and search John Laurie, that's Jon Laurie, to hear all the stuff he's done on the show. You're not going to be disappointed. But moving on, I think we're going to keep this chill, quasi-mellow vibe going. I don't think we're ready to pick it up just yet, because next up, Jim Santora, author of the underrated rock book, provides his choice for the ultimate mixtape.
Brian, if I had to choose a song for the ultimate mixtape, and it may surprise some people, it's going to be If You Leave Me Now by the band Chicago. And the reason being, and just keep a short story here, so my brother and I used to play some baseball in the backyard, And my parents had an 8-track like boombox, like a 1-speaker boombox. And we used to carry it out. And there were 2 8-tracks that we always broke out: Elton John's Greatest Hits and Chicago 10. Now, mind you, I'm probably about 9-10 years old at this time. It's, 1977, something like that. So this song comes on. When I hear it, everything stops. It's just such a great song. Peter Cetera's lyrics, his vocal quality is just amazing. I think he's one of the best singers that I've ever listened to in my time. And the song is a classic and it's timeless. And if we're looking at putting any kind of song into a mixtape and putting it in a time capsule, in my opinion, that is my choice. So once again, it is Chicago and If You Leave Me Now.
Reached number 1 on the Billboard US Hot 100 and also claimed the top slot in Canada, Australia, the UK, Ireland, the Netherlands, and South Africa. As far as cover versions go, Boyz II Men lend their unmistakable harmonies to their rendition that was featured on the 2009 album Love. And Jim has been a friend of the show over the years. We've talked music all the way back on Tune Styles, Playlist Wars, and now on My Weekly Mixtape, as he was a guest all the way back at the show's origin, episode 2, the ultimate 80s hard rock playlist. But fear not, Jim and I are working on a new episode as we speak, so be on the lookout for that one. And if you're a fan of music books, be sure to check out both the Underrated Rock Book and the Underrated Rock Book 2. I've read both of them, and they're a great way to dive into a lot of bands and albums that may have and probably have fallen off your radar, but most certainly shouldn't have. All right, so now we've got this slow, mellow vibe going. And since I just mentioned Boyz II Men, now I've got this R&B and kind of blues vibe in my mind. And also, since Jim was just on, I have Underrated swirling around in my mind. So I think what I'm going to do for my next song choice is check off both of those boxes, that R&B blues vibe and Underrated. So with that, here's ZZ Ward's choice for the ultimate mixtape.
Gosh, that is such a good question. I'm just trying to think of all the songs. Maybe Nina Simone, Be My Husband. I would throw that song in there. That song is like so incredible and like such a different piece of music, I mean, the way that I heard her play it was like drums and her singing. And the one thing about Nina Simone that I literally just was listening to her yesterday and thinking, I don't know how many singers I've heard sing that literally are talking to me about what they're going through when they're singing to me. She doesn't just sing the song. She's telling you her struggle and she's telling you her pain. It's incredible. I mean, there's no one like Nina Simone. So I would say Be My Husband, Nina Simone.
The opening track on her 1965 album Pastel Blues. In 2008, Coke Machine Glow included it on the 30 other albums of the 1960s list. In 2012, Alicia Keys included it on her personal 25 favorite albums list. And in 2017, Pitchfork placed it number 21 on the 200 best albums of the 1960s list. Now be sure to check out ZZ Ward's latest EP, Mother, because musically it's friggin' awesome, but you can also check out the album dive episode of My Weekly Mixtape, where ZZ joined me to talk about the stories behind all of the songs across the entire EP, including some new Sun Records versions of her hits from her 2012 debut Till the Casket Drops. You really don't want to miss this one. If you haven't heard ZZ Ward, remedy that because you will be hearing her in 2025 for sure. Now, with that said, we have been on a bit of a mellow streak, and I think now I have the perfect song to ease us out of that and bring us into something a little bit more upbeat, especially given this song's intro as it starts off slow and kind of takes you there. So with that, here's Elite Sound Entertainment's Doug Miller with his choice for the ultimate mixtape.
Wow.
Good questions. Oh, okay. You know what? I'm not going to overthink it. I'm going to take something that's close to my heart. It kind of encompasses a lot of the songs that we've gone over through all the episodes that we've done together. So this is a one-hit wonder. This is a cover song. This is a song that's a smash in the genre that it's in. So I'm going to give you the song that I think just blows me away every time I hear it. I'm going to go with Thelma Houston, Don't Leave Me This Way.
Oh.
She is a disco queen, you know, I have her right underneath Donna Summer. But this song was originally Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. You know, she did this her own way. Don't quote me, but I believe that she wasn't really being backed by, you know, the label and stuff when they did this. And I'm pretty sure she was like, I'm going to do this anyway, because I'm telling you, this is a smash. And kind of, you know, forged her own way. And just, man, the pipes on that woman when she's hitting those high notes and just the emotion in that song. It's a great song. I know it's a disco song, but it plays all times, all days, all parties, gets everybody going. It's got a ton of heart and soul in it. And yeah, I think that's something that anybody from any genre can appreciate. So I throw it on there, see what people think.
The song reached number 1 on the Billboard US Hot 100, as well as in Belgium and South Africa. The song also reached number 4 in Canada, the Netherlands, and Sweden, number 6 in Australia, and number 13 in the UK. And as Doug mentioned, it was a cover, so if you haven't heard Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes version, don't sleep on that one either. They're both killer tracks. Now, if you're looking for a DJ in the New York, New Jersey area, make sure to check out Doug at Elite Sound, as he's a consummate professional. I've known him for decades, and he really knows how to read the room he's in to make sure everyone at the party's having a great time, no matter what age group you're dealing with. He was a guest on the very popular episode 69, the Ultimate 90s Club and Dance Hits playlist. So if you want to hear a little bit more about where Doug is coming from with his club and dance mindset, check out that episode. I promise you won't be disappointed. But now that we've got people up and dancing and probably feeling good after that one, let's keep that groove going with Jesse Dayton's choice for the Ultimate Mixtape.
It could be any song?
Any song, any genre.
I'm not sure, man. I think it might be I'll Take You There by the Staple Singers.
Ooh.
The reason why is that's basically a gospel song, but it's also a rhythm and blues song. And it's got the South in it, and Pops is playing these cool little funky parts. And it's interracial. Like, if you've ever seen the documentary about the Swampers, it's amazing. That whole documentary about, like, that was an interracial band. It was like one of the first interracial bands. The bass player's a white guy. And boom, 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 all that stuff. So I think it might be I'll Take You There, because that's kind of, for me, the best of what America had to offer. And I think people heard that song, whether they were into heavy rock guitar or rhythm and blues or whatever. I think they would feel something no matter who they were.
The song reached number 1 on the US Billboard Hot 100, number 21 in Canada, number 30 in the UK, and number 7 in South Africa. Cover songs once again. In 1991, BB and CeCe Winans, featuring Mavis Staples, took their version of the song to number 1 on the US R&B chart and number 90 on the Billboard US Hot 100. Then, a few years later, in 94, General Public released another cover of the song. This was from the movie Threesome, and that hit number 22 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 38 in Canada. And finally, while not charting, Sammy Hagar and the Wabaritas covered it on their Living It Up album. I actually really like that version as well. Jesse is such an amazingly talented musician. He was my guest for episode 70, the Ultimate Guitar Solos playlist. And if you want to hear someone who takes guitar solo talk seriously and goes with all different genres and musical mindsets, this is the episode for you. There's a little bit of something for every music fan in this discussion. And Jesse truly is, while an incredibly gifted musician, he's also an incredibly passionate fan, and it comes out in that episode. But now look, we're up and still moving at this point, so we're going to keep the party going, but I'm going to slow it down and go with something a little bit smoother, with Sherry Thomas of the Aquarians' pick for the Ultimate Mixtape.
Wow, that's a difficult question, and I'd have 800 songs that I would put into that category, but there can only be one for me, and that would be Prince and Money Don't Matter Tonight. Prince is my all-time favorite artist, and that song is everything to me. The context, the structure, everything, it's perfect to me.
From 1991's Diamonds and Pearls, the song reached number 23 on the Billboard US Hot 100, number 19 in Canada and the UK, number 18 in Australia, and number 7 in the Netherlands. Now remember, this was the 5th of 7 singles from Diamonds and Pearls. I know everyone talks about Purple Rain as a popular Prince album, but you kind of can't forget this monster as well. I know it's 2 different eras for Prince, but both were just massive in completely different ways. Now, going back to Sherry, she is such a wonderful, delightful human being, a hell of a writer over at The Aquarian. I've been a fan of that magazine for decades. It was pretty much my Bible back in high school and college, as they truly had their finger on the pulse of where all the great live shows were taking place, whether it was Club Benet, Birch Hill Nightclub, Stone Pony, or if I was taking myself into the city, into the village. They knew where everything was happening. They always did great interviews and had great features, and it makes me so happy to see them still going strong to this day. Sherry was a guest on episode 80, the ultimate songs about the radio playlist, and I can't wait to have her back on the show again sometime in 2025. All right, I'm going to keep this upbeat vibe going, but like I said, the Prince song's smoother. So we're going to bring it back up a little bit here because this is kind of a musical roller coaster we're going on right now. And I'm digging this because we're picking it up and we're bringing it down, but it's not too jarring. It's kind of a smooth roller coaster. But now we're going to keep that vibe going with Patreon mixtaper Chad Lamassa as he provides his pick for the Ultimate Mixtape.
All right, so I've been struggling with this ever since you posted this on the Patreon thing. And I've gone back and forth with a whole bunch of songs. And the other day, I looked down at my arm and saw my Beastie Boys lyric tattoo and said, it's got to be Professor Booty, because the only thing that has saved me has always been music.
Nice.
And that's tattooed on my arm. And I feel like that's just such a very true thing for me. So I felt like that had to be the one.
An album track, and a killer one at that, from the Beasties' seminal 1992 album, Check Your Head. This is such an important album to me, especially coming out of Paul's Boutique, which was all the way back in 1989. This was the Beastie Boys showing their versatility and their ability to adapt to a vastly changing music scene. Think about it. In 1989, hair bands were all the rage, and by 92, it was all grunge and alternative. Yet the Beasties were able to stay true to their sound and true to their vibe and ride the wave of the changing musical landscape with ease. And that's something that I've always appreciated and admired about the Beastie Boys music. And I also appreciate Chad, who is a huge part of the Patreon mixtaper community. So I'd like to thank him so much for being a part of that. And if anyone listening wants to join those conversations, you could do so at patreon.com/myweeklymixtape. But here we go for the last song for the Ultimate Mixtape, Volume 2, Side B. And like I said before, this has kind of been a roller coaster. We've had some slower tunes, we had some dance, we had some hip hop, and I feel like we have to kind of level off this ride. And there's only one person that can do that, and that is Gomez from Playlist Wars and now the Sleevey G Show, as he provides his choice for the Ultimate Mixtape.
Let me tell you something. That's a hard question, Brian. Really hard question. You really had to put me on the spot today, didn't you? There's a few songs for me. I will say that. A couple of them that do resonate. If I had to choose one, it's hard because it's Tom Petty's Into the Great Wide Open. and Linkin Park's In the End. Two resonate me in my life, and it means a lot to me, but I got to go with Linkin Park In the End. At one point, I just felt like there's things that just did not resonate with my life a little bit, and that song really probably pulled myself, because in the end, it doesn't really matter. That's one of the best things that, Chester and Mike and that whole band said it, you know what I mean? And that was something that meant a lot to me, because at one point I felt like I was lost. And at the end of the day, it really didn't matter, because if I survived the day, I did it right. So I feel like that might help somebody out one day.
From 2000's Hybrid Theory, the song reached number 2 on the US Billboard Hot 100, number 4 in Germany, Switzerland, Australia, and Canada, number 3 in Sweden, and number 1 on the UK rock and metal charts. I got to see Linkin Park in December of 2000 at the Birch Hill nightclub. This was a small venue that's sadly no longer around in central New Jersey. And a year later, I got to see them at the PNC Bank Arts Center and Continental Airlines Arena as part of Ozfest, and it was the Family Values Tour. But there they were support acts. Again, arenas though. 2 years later, in 2003, they were still a support act, only this time at the stadium level, opening for Metallica. And then in 2004, I got to see them back at the amphitheater level, only this time headlining a festival featuring Korn, Snoop Dogg, Less Than Jake, and The Used. And they also had some guy named Jay-Z come out during their set to play some of their mashups at the time. I've always been a fan of Linkin Park, and I love the fact that I was able to really see this band rise from the clubs to the arenas and amphitheaters, all the way up to the stadiums in such a short period of time. If you think about it, it was only a 2 or 3 year period. Now, I will say, I really like what Emily Armstrong of Dead Sarah is bringing to the table now in 2024. So far, From Zero seems to, for me at least, mark a new era for the band while paying respect to those years and to Hybrid Theory and Meteor and all the stuff that Chester did. I hope the band can build momentum again, because I am sure that everyone listening to this that is a Linkin Park fan still misses Chester, but that's unfortunately not possible. And I hope that this new era of the band is able to bring something that satisfies fans of the old and the new. Now, as far as Gomez goes, like I mentioned before with Jay Sweet, I'm extremely thankful for the time that we put into our podcast. A year and a half built into Playlist Wars, and we had such a great time doing that show week in and week out. I do miss it, but with that being said, I am also super stoked to see all the great things he's got going on over at the Sleevy G Show. For those listening, Gomez hit his 100th episode a few weeks back, and he had on CJ Pierce of Drowning Pool, so be sure to check that interview out. Gomez was a guest over here on My Weekly Mixtape on episode 18, the Ultimate 80s Movie Soundtracks playlist, and he'll be back on very soon for another 80s themed episode that I think everyone's going to really, really dig. But there you have it, folks. Side B of Volume 2 of the Ultimate Mixtape, which consists of Ecstasies Wrapped in Grey, provided by Morris Brzezinski of the Love That Album podcast, Phil Collins' Take Me Home, provided by friend of the show, Amy Spear, Switchfoot's I Won't Let You Go, provided by John Laurie of Tantric and Smile Empty Soul, Chicago's If You Leave Me Now, provided by Jim Santora, author of The Underrated Rock Book and The Underrated Rock Book 2, Nina Simone's Be My Husband, provided by ZZ Ward, Thelma Houston's Don't Leave Me This Way, provided by Doug Miller of Elite Sound Entertainment, Staple Singer's I'll Take You There, provided by Jesse Dayton, Prince's Money Don't Matter Tonight, provided by Sherry Thomas of the Aquarian Magazine, Beastie Boys' Professor Booty, provided by Patreon mixtaper Chad Lamassa, and Linkin Park's In the End, provided by Alex Gomez, who you remember from Playlist Wars, but now of The Sleevy G Show. Head over to myweeklymixtape.com to hear all the songs we've discussed in this mix through the playlist embedded on the episode page. Now, coming up in Volume 3, or songs 41 through 65, if you're listening to this as a single playlist, we've got Guy Fletcher from Dire Straits, Joe Bonamassa, Desmond Child, Walter Trout, Todd Park Moore from Big Head Todd and the Monsters, Billy Sheehan from Mr. Big, Emily Wolfe, Jax Hollow, and plenty of other past guests, friends of the show, and of course, the incredible Patreon mixtapers. If you have a song that you think should have been added to the Ultimate Mixtape, I'd love to hear from you, so feel free to reach out to me at myweeklymixtape@gmail.com or visit me on social media, where you can find the show on almost all the social media haunts at My Weekly Mixtape. You can also head to myweeklymixtape.com to check out the full catalog of My Weekly Mixtape episodes. And finally, if you like what you're hearing on the show, you can help me out by either telling a friend, leaving the show a 5-star review wherever you're tuning in, or becoming a Patreon mixtaper at patreon.com/myweeklymixtape. There you can find ad-free episodes of the show, gain early access to future My Weekly Mixtape episodes, chime in on upcoming topics, become a future guest, and so much more. Now here's where I'd normally say that's all for this week, but once again, it's not, because Volume 3 is coming your way in just a few short days. So I'll close this episode once again by simply saying thank you all for listening, and until next time, enjoy the tunes.